Case 1. The Backrooms. One low-resolution photo of an empty yellow hallway, wallpaper peeling, carpet stained, became the seed of the internet's biggest liminal space legend. The idea that you could slip out of reality entirely and wake up inside an infinite, empty maze of rooms just like it, with no exit and no other person in sight. For years, the assumption was that the image had to be a 3D render or a set built specifically to feel wrong. No one could find the original source. It circulated with no context, no photographer, no location, just an unsettling sense of familiarity that made people swear they'd seen a room exactly like it somewhere in real life, in an office building or a school hallway they couldn't quite place. Internet researchers eventually traced the photo back to its actual source, the second floor of a Hobbytown store in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, taken during a renovation years earlier, long before anyone had attached a mythology to it. A digital nightmare turned out to have a street address, and visitors have since traveled there just to photograph the real hallway that started an entire genre of internet horror, standing in the exact spot the myth was born. Case 2. The Rake. Described online as a pale, hairless, crouching humanoid that watches people from the foot of their bed or the edge of their yard, the Rake became one of the most widely shared creepypastas of the 2000s, spreading through forums as a short story told from multiple witnesses' perspectives. The story should have stayed contained to horror forums. Instead, trail cameras and home security systems in several US states began capturing genuinely unsettling footage of pale, hairless figures moving through backyards after dark, and homeowners started calling local police to report them by the creature's internet name, expecting someone to know exactly what they meant. Most of the sightings were eventually identified as animals suffering from severe mange, which strips fur and changes an animal's silhouette dramatically, making a coyote or fox look almost humanoid at a distance. But the 911 calls were real, the patrol responses were real, and in some neighborhoods, residents changed their nighttime routines entirely because of a creature that began as a piece of internet fiction and ended up as a dispatch log entry. Case 3. The Bunnyman Bridge. Fairfax County, Virginia, is home to one of the strangest documented legends in American folklore, a man in a full rabbit costume, allegedly seen threatening people near a railroad underpass with an axe, a story that has been retold locally for over 50 years. On its face, it sounds like pure campfire fiction, the kind of story a teenager invents to scare a younger sibling, but local archives tell a different story. In the early 1970s, Fairfax County Police actually logged multiple separate reports describing a man in costume confronting residents near that exact bridge, incidents serious enough to warrant follow-up patrols and a temporary uptick in nighttime drive-bys. Those reports made it into local newspapers at the time and are still part of the area's documented history today, filed alongside cases with far less mystery attached. Bunnyman Bridge now shows up on paranormal maps next to haunted houses and roadside legends, but unlike most of them, this one starts with an actual police case file, not a rumor passed between neighbors, and the underpass itself still stands exactly where the reports say it does. Case 4. Kuchisake-onna. Long before the internet existed, Japan already had this legend, a woman in a surgical mask who stops strangers and asks, "Am I pretty?" before removing the mask to reveal a disfigured smile and reacting badly to whatever answer she's given, no matter what it is. Decades later, the story resurfaced online and reignited a documented public panic across parts of Japan. Serious enough that some schools shortened hours and organized staff supervised group walks home so students wouldn't travel alone, while local news outlets ran segments urging caution after dark. Local police increased patrols during the height of the panic, and the event is still studied today as one of the clearest examples of a purely oral legend producing a measurable, coordinated public safety response centuries after the story first began being told, proving that some myths don't need the internet at all, just the right cultural moment to resurface. Case 5. Ted the Caver. In the early 2000s, a photo log started circulating on caving forums. A user named Ted was documenting an expedition into a narrow, unmapped passage somewhere in Utah. posting pictures alongside increasingly tense updates about the descent, the kind of slow burn format that made readers feel like they were following along in real time. At first it read like any hobbyist's travelogue. Then the tone shifted. Ted described unexplained sounds echoing from deeper in the passage, a growing sense that something down there did not want him to continue, and photos that grew darker and more disorienting with every post. For years, the caving community argued about whether the whole thing was staged, a horror story dressed up as a trip report to fool a niche hobby forum. It wasn't staged, at least not the location. Experienced cavers eventually cross-referenced the rock formations in the images with a real, documented cave system in Utah, and matched the passage almost exactly down to the same narrow squeeze Ted described in his final posts. Amateur explorers now hike out specifically to find Ted's cave for themselves, flashlight in hand, retracing a route that was supposedly fiction. The legend never needed a monster to survive. A real set of coordinates did the job instead, and that's often scarier than anything invented. Case 6, Cicada 3301. In January 2012, a cryptic image appeared on an internet forum challenging anyone who saw it to find a hidden message inside. Whoever posted it claimed only that they were looking for highly intelligent individuals and gave no other explanation, letting the puzzle itself do all the recruiting. The puzzle escalated for months, spanning hidden steganography, layered cryptography, physical posters that appeared in cities on different continents, and phone numbers that connected solvers to entirely new layers of clues. No one could confirm who was running it or why, and the trail consistently went cold at the exact moment someone got close to an answer, as if whoever built it was watching in real time. Cybersecurity researchers and intelligence-adjacent analysts eventually treated the phenomenon seriously enough to investigate its origins directly, describing it as consistent with a genuine recruitment or skills testing operation rather than an elaborate prank. To this day, no one has ever publicly confirmed who created Cicada 3301, whether it ever actually ended, or whether a new round is already quietly running somewhere right now. Case 7. Siren Head. Digital artist Trevor Henderson created Siren Head purely as concept art, a towering figure with a pair of air raid sirens where a head should be, designed to unsettle through scale and sound rather than gore, built for a single illustration and nothing more. The character was never meant to leave the screen, but the sound design attached to it did. Pranksters began recording distorted siren audio inspired by the creature and playing it through speakers in rural areas late at night, sometimes from moving vehicles, timing it to catch people alone on quiet roads. In several documented incidents, the sound was convincing enough that residents genuinely believed an emergency was unfolding and contacted local authorities directly, triggering real dispatch responses and, in at least one case, a brief evacuation warning before officials realized the source was a prank. A piece of digital concept art ended up activating actual emergency protocols, proof that fear doesn't need a physical body, just the right frequency at the right hour. Case 8. Polybius, according to arcade folklore. A mysterious cabinet called Polybius appeared briefly in a Portland arcade in 1981, caused strange psychological effects in the kids who played it, ranging from nightmares to memory gaps, and was quietly collected by unmarked vehicles days later, never to be seen again. For decades, this was dismissed as the kind of urban legend arcade regulars invent to explain a broken or forgotten machine. There was no serial number, no photograph, no paper trail connecting it to anything real, just secondhand memories that never quite matched up, told by different people in different states who somehow described the same glowing cabinet. Declassified documents later confirmed that government-funded researchers really were studying behavioral and psychological responses to video games around that exact period, using arcades as informal testing grounds without players ever knowing. The specific cabinet has never been located, but the underlying premise of the legend turned out to sit uncomfortably close to genuine research programs that actually existed, which is usually when a story stops being dismissed so easily.